Shalom, ladies, and welcome to week 13 of Coffee and Connection. I'm Baruch Hashem back in my home. We actually had to go for tests again today, but we went this morning so I could be back home and comfortable with all of you. Baruch Hashem, everyone is doing well here. I hope all is well by you. I know things are, I don't know what's going on all over the world, in Israel, even though we're not leaving our house, but there isn't really nobody can really leave their house. I know in Canada there's also a lot of lockdown going on. I know every place in America has their own stuff, so I don't know what's happening with all of you, but there's definitely a lot of homeness going on, right? So someone's asking if you have COVID in Israel, you have to leave your home. No, no, no. I just mean that like, no, I mean you're not leaving home. We're in like a lockdown. Me and my family are like on how do you say bidud? We're like in quarantine. We can't really leave our house. You have an 8 o'clock curfew. Okay, everyone's got different stuff. Some places the kids are in school, not in school. We're definitely home a lot, right? We're definitely home a lot with our families, with our kids. And I think one of the things that I know I have really experienced over the last year, and I've seen and spoken to so many of you and heard, hearing what's going on for everyone around the world, we really see this year how important it is to not just like your family, not just love your family, but enjoy them, to enjoy your family, to enjoy spending time with your husband, with your kids, enjoying being in your home together. That's really not something that is muvan me'elav. It's not something that everybody has. It's not something that we all experience. It's not something that we all experience at all points in our lives. And really, um, the more I see it, how important it is, the more I experience it, the more I speak with other women who are or aren't experiencing that warmth of of like being in your home with your family and Baruch Hashem enjoying that, the more I want to I have make it my mission to help women experience that feeling, right? To experience the desire to want to spend time with our husbands, with our kids, to enjoy this time that we get to be together, and not negating that there are difficult reasons that we're home together, but when we are home together, to be able to enjoy it. And so we spend a lot of time on these calls talking about our relationship with our husbands, right? How can we enjoy our relationship with our husband? How can it be a safe relationship? How can it be a good experience, whether we're going out or we're staying home when we're together? And I think it's also important, and I think it's important to discuss also the topic of enjoying our relationship with our kids. Now, the reality is that when I first sent out the call for questions, right? Tell me your questions and I'm going to answer them here. Um, a lot of questions came back about kids. And I didn't want to start with that because, in the end of the day, right, that's not our main focus. But I see how much it is your questions, and I see that it really is such an important part of what is going on in our home. Um, our kids are a focal point in our home, and it's even a focal point in our relationship with our husbands. Hear from so many women, that's what we fight about. We fight about the kids. We fight about how to handle the kids. We fight about how he parents the kids, how I parent the kids. We fight about what decisions to make for the kids, what kind of home to make for the kids. And so it's important in this topic of having, that the warmth and connection of coffee and connection, to talk about kids. How does it work? How do we have a good relationship with our kids? And this is, on the one hand, I could give the easy answer, which is, well, it's very similar. It's not the same in terms of the relationship we have with our husbands is different than the relationship we have with our kids, but the same basic, um, what's the word I'm looking here, like fundamental blocks are the same, in because it's the same in every relationship, especially in another relationship where we want safety and connection. what we what I believe really creates a solid foundation in our relationship with our kids is love and respect and empathy. Now, at the same time, that it's also a more complicated answer because we have to throw into the mix the fact that we have a job to do as their parents, which is to teach them and parent them. Sometimes we have to discipline them. Sometimes we have to deal with, there's challenges and their struggles and their tantrums and their schooling and their rebellions and all that stuff. How do we balance that? Right? So, whereas with a husband, we would say, what's on his paper is his paper, and, his life is his own, he makes his own decisions. I can't teach him or control him or change him. With our kids, it can feel a little bit blurred or very blurred because I do have a job as their parent to teach them, to parent them, to to really be a mother figure, right? So how do we balance that? What do we do? And how can we have a good relationship with them while still being parents, while still being a mother? And I can't promise that I have all the answers. I mean, I never can. But, with our kids, remember that every kid is different. Every kid needs different things at different ages and different stages. But again, it's the same when we apply the same fundamentals. And on top of that, when you look for parenting advice across the spectrum, all different rabbis and rebbitzins and therapists and educators, you almost all get the same answer, especially when it comes to questions about teenagers. They will tell you that the most important thing that we do with our kids, and I'll say especially our teenagers, because that's where things get even more difficult, we'll talk about, is to make sure you have a good relationship with them. In the end of the day, see, here's the crazy thing, and the way you can, I mean, think of your own parents, think of your relationship with your mother, think of your relationship with a teacher that you really loved, that really inspired you. Do you, when you think of what you gained from them, how much did you gain from what they told you, what they taught you, how they disciplined you? And how much did you learn from who they are and the relationship that you have with them? Right? I mean, it's, it's just so, it becomes so clear when we think of it that way, right? I remember that feeling of trying to explain this to somebody who was like running a school, and she was trying to find teachers who were like the best, like they knew all the right information. And I remember telling her, like, how much do we really remember what we learned in a class? We remember who the teacher was, remember what she stood for, we remember the feeling we got being in her presence, what it felt like when she opened her mouth and started talking. That's what we remember, right? Even when you sit and take notes, how much do you actually remember what the teacher said in the class, right? I think of the rabbis and rebbitzins I've learned with over the years. I think of the women and the men that have inspired me. How much do I remember what they said versus how much did I learn from the feeling I got being in their presence? And that same idea is so important when we apply it to parenting. As much as there's so much we can teach our kids and so much we want from them, in the end of the day, what matters most is our relationship with them. Because, first of all, like we said, we learn more from who someone is and how we feel with them than what they tell us. And the better relationship we have with our kids, the more they're going to want to learn from us, the more they're going to want to know us and connect to us and learn from us. And when we're yelling or controlling or, getting, all up in their business, it's much harder for them to feel connected. Now, that doesn't mean that we never have to step in and discipline. Of course we do. And we'll talk about like what boundaries do you set. But at the same time, the better relationship you have with them, the more those moments where you need to step in, number one, are make a difference, right? A positive difference. And number two, your relationship can bounce back after it. If we don't have positive relationships with our kids, then even when we discipline them, the discipline doesn't mean anything, right? They'll just laugh it off or rebel or you know, brush it aside. If we don't matter to them, then why will they care if we're mad at them, right? Why will they care to listen to what we have to say? When we have a good relationship with our kids, they don't want to disappoint us. They want to be connected. And I'm not saying this in a manipulative way, not at all. I know people that parent in that way, and that's not what I'm advocating here. I'm talking about in a real connecting way, to have a relationship where we feel real love for them and real respect and real empathy. Of course, that looks different with kids and it looks with our husbands or with other people, but the building blocks are the same. When we have those feelings for our kids, when we enjoy them, right? And we listen to them and we consider them and we give them space to have their feelings and their thoughts and we try to understand them from their perspective and we spend time with them and get to know them and give them that message that you are enough and you matter and I want to get you, I want to understand you, then our words mean more to them. They our connection with them becomes more of an education than the words we say, right? More of an education than the discipline, more important, more impactful than, what we can teach them. And it's a very powerful it's a very powerful lesson. It's a very powerful realization to lean into because it allows us also to be ourselves with our kids. Often, if we're honest with ourselves, the thing that makes it hard for us to connect with our kids is our fears. Sometimes it's the fears of what will other people think if my kid does X, Y, and Z, or it's the fear of who's my kid going to grow up to be, or it's the fear of what's going to happen in school, what's going to happen when they're an adult, what's going to happen with their, is this who they're going to be? um, those are the two main fears, but there's definitely more. What does it mean about me as a parent? How's this going to affect the other kids? All of these fears can come up for us and really get in the way of us being able to be ourselves, be the mother that we can be to that kid, connect with them in the deep way that a mother can connect with her child. And when we can let go of the fears, and it doesn't mean that we don't recognize concerns, right? We talked a few weeks ago about fear, the difference between fears and desires, fears and even concerns. There's a difference between I have a fear, because when I have a fear, I live into my fear, right? And this is a big way that fear can create the fear. But when I have a concern, I can say, okay, so what is in my power to create that, like to deal with that? And then we can more easily separate between what's in my control and what's not. So let's talk a little bit about what's in my control and what's not in my control. And this goes with the fear, right? Because when we're in fear, we go into control. And when we're in control, we're often trying to control things that we don't actually control, which then creates our fear. So, how do we know the difference between control, being controlling, and setting, let's say, a boundary? Like, I'm the mother. This is what I say. This is my house. This is my family. You're my child. And the first thing I'm going to say is that so much of this depends on the age of the child and where the child's at in their normal, healthy process of becoming an adult. Let's not deny the fact that what we call teenagehood, right? And that experience of saying, who am I? Who am I in comparison to you? What feels very, can seem very rebellious is a normal, healthy part of a person growing up. and maturing. And it's difficult and it's hard and it's part of the process. And so, one of the first questions we have to look at is where is our kid in that stage? Where are they in that? Now, it's very easy when you don't yet have teenagers. I remember my friends used to laugh at me and be like, oh, my kids are just teenagers. And they're like, oh, yeah, just wait. Just wait till you actually have teenagers. So, it's very true. So we can really easily think like, oh my gosh, I already have teenagers. And it could be that your kid already is at that stage. So you want to look at and see when when I do say that this is how it is and this is how it goes, are they listening? Okay, so I'm just going to use a very classic example. And it's you can apply it to any, really almost any um, example. But let's use the example of skirts. Okay, how long is your kid's skirt? So when I was younger and so innocent, I used to look at these girls wearing these short skirts and I'd say, I don't understand. Why doesn't the mother just not buy those skirts? Why is she buying her skirts that are so short? I don't get it. Oh, little Chana, you were so sweet and innocent back then, weren't you? So, as my kids got older, I realized that most mothers, if they care, are not buying those skirts. But the girls figure out they pull them up, they get them from friends, they wear their old skirts that don't really fit them anymore. And the question is, at what point when you tell your daughter, pull your skirt down, does she pull it down? Even if she rolls her eyes, versus at what point does it not matter how many times you say it and how easy it seems to you? Like, yeah, just pull it down. What's the big deal? That point where she does it, that means that you have crossed a line. It's crossed a line where she's now in a different stage. And whereas in the first stage, you can, with love and respect, very matter of factly say, that's not how you wear your skirt, or pull your skirt down, or whatever. Once, and again, apply this to your own examples. Once the kid is no longer doing that, then that is when we can start to focus and prioritize the relationship over the rules. And one way to know, again, the first is when you say it, do they actually listen? Because if you're saying it and they're not listening, then every time you say it, you are delegitimizing your word and you're what's the word? You're causing fragmentation in your relationship as opposed to connection, which makes it just more likely that she's not going to listen to other things that you say. So it's not about giving up. I'm not saying go out and buy the skirts. And this is where we get to the next difference is separating between your actions and her actions or his actions, right? Separating between your boundaries and his or her decisions. There's a difference between what I buy and what you wear, right? And that's when when we're talking about setting boundaries, we always have to remember in any situation that setting a boundary is always on me, what I will do and what I won't do. But setting a boundary on someone else is control, right? And as our kids get older, if we keep setting those boundaries on them and they're not responding positively, then we're walking into being controlling. And controlling is always going to sacrifice in the relationship. Now, we as parents may sometimes make that decision that this is a place where we were willing and we feel we must sacrifice relationship at this point. And that we need to do that sometimes. But the more careful we are as to when to do it and how to do it, the less of an effect it will then have on the relationship and the more of an impact, a positive impact, meaning how much they'll actually listen when we do set that limitation. So, there's so much to talk about in this topic. And I mean, I could talk about it for hours, and I often do with my clients. But one thing that, I just want to make sure we answer the initial questions. How can we make sure to have a good relationship with our kids while not sacrificing our role as parents? Number one, remember that the most important thing we do with our kids is teach them by who we are, by being ourselves, being women of integrity, being the women that we want to be. And that is the most important, that's the biggest way you teach your kids anything. So focusing on that, it's a double, what's the opposite of a double-edged sword? It's like a double victory. Because when you're being yourself, number one, you're going to be someone that they want to learn from and they want to connect with. And number two, you're being someone that they can have a connection with. So you're both being a mother and connecting and building relationship. Amazing. Number two is to look to treat our children and create a relationship based on love, respect, and empathy. And number three is recognizing the difference between boundaries and control, right? Recognizing that I can set a boundary on what I will say and what I will do and what I will buy and what I will cook or eat or wear or whatever, and giving our kids space to set their boundaries, knowing that it's part of their lives. And the more respect and connection, right, it's a full cycle, the easier that can flow in the home and make the home a place where we can enjoy being. Okay, so just let me look and see if we have any practical questions on this. How does this work regarding tasks around the house? How do we make them want to help? That's an excellent, excellent question. I don't know. Does anyone want to help? Some kids do. Some kids want to help, and that would be the first thing: is looking for the things that they want to do. Some kids, and this is why, yes, Chaya is saying I let them choose. Oh, hi, Moshe. Chaya says I let them choose from a list. That's a great. Like I'll say to my kids Friday morning, what do you want to do? Right? What job do you want to have? I mean, it used to be Friday afternoon, but now it's Friday morning. What do you want to do? Some kids are happy to clean and then, know that they're done. Some of my kids hate cleaning. So, like, I have one daughter who's like, I'll fold the laundry, right? There's always baskets of laundry that need to be folded. And then I have another daughter who loves to bake. So, she'll bake cookies for Shabbos. Sometimes I'll say, do you want to help with the challah? And sometimes I'll say, I want to mix the challah, or oh, I'll braid it, or I'll mix it, but you braid it, right? And kind of giving them space. And then when they do it, making sure that we praise them, right? Making sure that we really um, tell them how much it means to us, not in a like pouring it on, but like this is so yummy, or thank you for your help, and letting them know that it affects us, it means something to us, because at the end of the day, they they want us to be happy, right? Yes, about respecting them, cultivating a team mentality, treats when we are all done, music on for sure. Music on Friday is awesome, even though sometimes I'm like, I really want to take this time to listen to something, but okay, I like the music too. But so putting on music, and being with them, like not putting on that cheer on my in my ears, but like talking to them and being with them. And yeah, giving them treats, like when it's all done, they get to watch something, or they get chocolate, or they whatever, they get something. It's really helpful. I think we talked last week, or maybe that was on a different call, about bribing your kids. And how I used to think like, oh, you don't bribe your kids. Like, oh yeah, it works. It helps get them moving. Shalom lishma ba lishma, right? It helps give them some incentive. You can also make it clear, like we help. Everyone has to help, right? So that's your bound. That can be kind of like a family agreement, a family rule. Everyone helps, and then you get to decide how you're going to help, right? You get to decide what you're going to do, but you have to do something. And that's kind of a nice, like it's bound, like it's something set, but it also gives them some choice in the matter. Are there going to be weeks that someone doesn't help? Yes. Are there going to be weeks that someone does way more than someone else? Yes. And you'll see by nature there are some kids who help more than others, but it's always good not to rely too much on those kids that really help you a lot, because that can end up backfiring on us later on. You spoke about enjoying our kids. Can you give a tip, especially when I'm so overwhelmed, busy, etc.? Honestly, just spending, I don't want to say just because it can really be an effort, spending time with them, prioritizing spending time with them. We're so busy. We have so much to do. I mean, like like sometimes the way my kids know that I'm really stressed is I stand there and I go, I feel like I'm gonna cry. And they're like, uh-oh, you said that yesterday, Ema. And I'm like, oh no, I must really be stressed these days. So there's so much to do. So much. And we're only gonna make time for our kids and spending time with them when that's on our list. That's a priority. To take time every day to, sit and play a game or talk to them about their day. How was your day? How was your test? You want to play a card game. And it can be hard to, you may not be able to do it with everyone every day. But making that time to connect is so meaningful. And this is with younger kids and older kids, even grown married kids. I mean, I love I love when my mother calls me. I just love it when she like takes the time to call me. I love when, I remember like seeing my grandparents calling my parents. Like there's something so special. We can always reach out and take that time, make it a priority. It's a great way to enjoy our time with our kids because we really get to know them. They're not just these kids, they're people that we can treasure. We can treasure our experiences with them when we enjoy them, right? And it kind of goes together. Actually, right now in the Absolutely Feminine group coaching program, we're talking about how to like create love, like how to feel like you love your husband. Like it's not always so for sure that you love him. What if you don't feel you love him? What if you don't feel like there's so much love for him in the relationship? How do you cultivate that? How do you create a loving experience? It's such an amazing topic, and it's a lot of what we talk about is making sure to like enjoy that time together, listen to them. And let's apply this to kids, listening to him talk, listening to them talk, being interested in their lives, not just as like, okay, whatever, they're kids, like no, but this is their world. And the more, again, just like we said about ourselves, when we are being ourselves, they're going to want to connect to us. When we give our kids space to be themselves and express themselves, and we listen and really, and we laugh and we get into it with them, we're going to get to know them. And there's they're great, right? Your kids are great. They're people. Let's get to like really give yourself the permission and the time, because it is time, it is effort to get to know them and make that a priority in your day, even if it's just for a few minutes, even if it's one kid a day, even if it's, 5 minutes at a time. That would be my biggest tip to cultivate that feeling of I like enjoy spending time with my family, right? That would be the best way to cultivate that feeling. Okay. Um, Amazing. Thank you for your great questions. Um, do, 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 do. Do, 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 do. Okay, I think I answered all the questions. So great to have you all here. Thank you for being here and being a part of Coffee and Connection. And until we speak next time, may we all be blessed to live, love, and be loved with all our hearts. Goodbye for now.